The sky above Alaris IV burned crimson with flames of destruction. Once magnificent crystal towers lay shattered across the wasteland. Smoke and dread filled the air. Lyra Vaughn stood at a ruined window in the command center, her blue skin drained and exhausted. She hadn't slept in days. A voice called behind her. "Latest reports from the east," Commander Eli Kent said, stepping forward with a torn, filthy uniform. Like all Karani, he was tall and graceful with shimmering blue skin, yet his eyes had dimmed. He handed her a data tablet, trembling slightly. "How bad?" she asked, already knowing. "The shields are collapsing. The Draoran invaders broke through our final defensive line." His voice carried no hope. "We have maybe 2 days before they reach our capital." Lyra studied the numbers and felt her heart sink. Over 70% of their army was lost. Food would last 1 week. Refugee centers overflowed with terrified citizens. "What about evacuation ships? We might save 5% of our population," Eli said, looking away. "We must choose who survives and who remains." Lyra closed her eyes. The Karani had lived as scholars and artists. They built their world on wisdom, beauty, and thought. They had no enemies until the Draorans arrived 2 years ago. These reptilian conquerors appeared without warning, demanding surrender. When the Karani refused, destruction followed. "Call the council," Lyra commanded after a long silence. A young officer burst through the door, eyes wide. "Administrator, the sensors detected multiple vessels entering our system." Eli's shoulders fell. "More Draoran reinforcements?" "No, sir. These ships are different. They don't match any Draoran patterns." Lyra and Eli rushed to the main screen. The display showed 12 sleek vessels painted white and blue, covered in unfamiliar symbols. "Have they signaled us?" Lyra asked. "No, but they're moving to defensive positions around our world. They're placing themselves between us and the Draoran fleet," the communications officer reported. "We're receiving a message from their largest ship." The screen flickered. A face appeared, unlike anything the Karani had ever seen. The being had light brown skin, dark short hair, and a flat face with a protruding nose and small ears. "This is Captain Frank Winters of the United Earth Fleet," he said in a deep, clear voice. "We received your call for help. Hold position. Help is here." The bridge went silent. "Are you real?" Lyra finally whispered, her voice shaking. "Very real, Administrator Vaughn. We've been exploring this region for 6 months and picked up your distress signals. But why help us?" Eli asked. "You don't know us. This isn't your concern." Another figure appeared beside Winters, a woman with dark hair tied back and sharp eyes. "I'm Strategic Commander Lisa Naguan. We make it our business to help those who can't help themselves. The Draorans have left destroyed worlds in their wake. We've seen enough. We know they must be stopped." For the first time in months, Lyra felt something new, a small light of hope. "The Draorans will attack your ships. We're counting on it," Captain Winters said. "Would you join us aboard our vessel to discuss strategy?" 2 hours later, Lyra and Eli prepared to board the shuttle in their final functioning bay. 5 Karani guards stood nearby, nervous. "This could be a trap," one whispered. "If they meant to harm us, they could have let the Draorans finish their work," Lyra replied. "We have nothing left to lose." The shuttle lifted smoothly. Through the windows, Lyra watched the human ships in perfect formation around Alaris IV. They were smaller than Draoran vessels, but looked faster and nimbler. As they reached the largest ship, the Dauntless, Lyra caught her breath. The vessel was stunning. Sleek lines and glowing blue engines built for both speed and strength. The shuttle docked gently. Lyra led her group through the airlock. 3 humans waited inside. She recognized Captain Winters and Commander Naguan from their transmission. The third was a dark-skinned man with broad shoulders and watchful eyes. "Welcome aboard the Dauntless," Captain Winters said, placing his right hand over his chest. "This is Colonel Jack Rivera, our Marine commander." "Thank you for your welcome," Lyra said, copying the gesture. "I'm Administrator Lyra Vaughn, and this is Commander Eli Kent." "Please follow us to the conference room," Commander Naguan said. "We have much to cover and little time to waste." They walked through wide hallways where humans worked with focused purpose. Some paused to stare at the visitors, but most simply nodded respectfully and returned to their tasks. The conference room had a round table and a large display showing all ships in the system. The Draoran fleet, over 30 vessels, regrouped on the far side of the planet. "They've noticed us," Colonel Rivera said, pointing. "They're changing formation." Captain Winters gestured for everyone to sit. "Let me be direct, Administrator. We've studied the Draorans for months. They've destroyed or enslaved 12 civilizations we know of. We believe they can be stopped, but we need to understand what you're facing." Eli leaned forward. We've fought for 2 years. Our weapons barely harm their ships. Their soldiers are stronger than ours. Most of our cities are gone. We've lost our military bases. Commander Naguan nodded. We've seen similar patterns elsewhere. The Draorans rely on raw power and fear. They've never faced a species that fights the way we do. How do humans fight? Lyra asked. Colonel Rivera smiled without warmth. Creatively, quickly, and with complete determination. Before anyone could respond, an officer rushed in. Captain, the Draoran commander is hailing us. Captain Winters stood. Put him on screen. A massive reptilian face filled the display. Dark green scales covered the creature's features, and yellow eyes narrowed at the sight of the Karani leaders. I am War Commander Vexthor of the Draoran Empire, he hissed. Leave this system immediately. The Karani world belongs to the Empire. Captain Winters stepped forward. I'm Captain Frank Winters of the United Earth Fleet. We've established diplomatic ties with the sovereign Karani people. Any further attacks against them will be considered an act of war against Earth and our allies. The Draoran's mouth opened in cruel laughter. You threaten the Empire? You know nothing of our strength. You know nothing of ours, Commander Naguan said calmly. Vexthor's eyes darkened. You have 1 hour to leave the system or we will destroy your ships. The screen went dark. Captain Winters turned to Lyra and Eli. It seems we've run out of time for talking. Will you fight alongside us? Lyra looked at Eli, who nodded firmly. She turned back to Winters. We have little to offer, but what remains is yours. Good, Colonel Rivera said. I brought 12,000 Marines who are very eager to meet these Draorans. For the first time in many months, Lyra felt her spirit lift. Perhaps, just perhaps, hope wasn't completely dead. The hour passed quickly. On the dauntless bridge, Captain Winters stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Beside him, Commander Naguan watched the tactical display, her face calm. The Draorans are moving into attack formation, an officer reported. Expected, Winters said. He pressed a button. All ships, battle stations. Deploy fighters and activate defenses. Administrator Vaughn watched in amazement as the calm bridge became a center of urgent activity. Humans moved with purpose, calling out updates. You've done this before, she said quietly to Commander Naguan. Many times, Naguan replied without looking away. Humanity fought its own wars before we reached the stars. We learned hard lessons about survival. Colonel Rivera entered wearing black armor with his helmet tucked under his arm. Marine dropships are ready. Ground teams await your order. Captain Winters nodded. Begin Phase 1. Small fighters launched from the human ships, moving with incredible speed toward the approaching Draoran fleet. What are those? Commander Kent asked. Fighters, Rivera explained. Each piloted by a single human, fast, nimble, and fully armed. The fighters reached the Draoran ships and flew in complex patterns around them. The Draoran vessels fired energy weapons, but the human craft moved too quickly, dodging blasts effortlessly. They're just circling, Lyra said, confused. They're not attacking. Commander Naguan smiled slightly. They're scanning and learning your enemy's systems, response times, and weaknesses. Our pilots excel at this. After several minutes, the fighters retreated. Captain Winters received data and nodded. Begin Phase 2. 3 human ships moved forward, positioning themselves directly before the Draoran fleet. The reptilians fired immediately. Bright energy beams struck the human vessels. Your ships will be destroyed, Kent cried out. But the human ships glowed with shimmering blue shields that absorbed the attacks. Adaptive shielding, Captain Winters explained. The more they fire at us, the better our shields learn to resist their weapons. The human ships returned fire with projectiles that traveled at impossible speeds. Kinetic penetrators, Rivera said, noting the Karani's confusion. Simple but effective. No shield stops physical objects moving that fast. Several Draoran ships showed damage where the projectiles had struck. The reptilian fleet spread out, changing tactics. They're adapting, Commander Naguan observed. Good, now they'll respect our decoys. Decoys? Lyra asked. Her answer came as hundreds of small objects launched from the human ships. On the display, they looked identical to the human fighters. The Draoran fleet split its fire between the real and false targets. Now, Captain Winters said, Colonel, begin your operation. Rivera placed his hand to his ear. All dropships, you are cleared for launch. May God have mercy on the Draorans because we won't. Large vessels launched from beneath the human ships, blocky and practical, designed for one purpose alone, delivering soldiers to the ground. What are you doing? Commander Kent asked. Taking back your planet, Rivera replied, starting with your capital city. The dropships accelerated toward Alaris 4, bypassing the distracted Draoran fleet. We've located 3 key Draoran bases, Commander Naguan explained. Capturing or destroying them will disorganize their ground forces. Lyra stepped forward. Our people are civilians. Many are still in those areas. Captain Winters spoke gently. That's why we're sending our best Marines, trained in city combat and civilian rescue. I don't understand, Commander Kent said. Why risk your people for hours? Colonel Rivera's expression hardened. Because we've been where you are. Humanity nearly destroyed itself before we learned to work together. We promised ourselves that if we ever found other intelligent life, we would do better than those who came before us. The bridge fell silent. Then the communications officer called out, Colonel, we have a live feed from Alpha Team. The main screen showed a helmet camera view. A human soldier moved through a ruined street in what had once been a beautiful Karani city. Ahead, several reptilian soldiers had cornered Karani civilians. Permission to engage, a female voice said. Granted, Rivera replied. Save those civilians, Lieutenant Delgado. What happened next amazed the Karani leaders. The camera moved with incredible speed as the soldier charged forward. 2 more humans appeared from different directions. Their weapons fired in controlled bursts. The Draoran soldiers fell instantly. One larger reptilian raised its weapon. The camera jerked as Lieutenant Delgado leaped over a fallen wall and struck the Draoran with such force that it crashed to the ground. Area secure, Delgado reported. The camera turned to show Karani civilians huddled in fear. We have 12 civilians, 3 injured but stable, requesting medical extraction. Already on the way, another voice responded. The screen returned to the space battle. Everything had changed. 3 Draoran ships were heavily damaged and drifting powerless. The others had pulled back into a defensive formation. They're regrouping, Commander Naguan said. They weren't expecting this kind of resistance. Captain Winters nodded. Good. That gives us time to secure the ground. He turned to Lyra and Kent. We need to know more about your planet's defenses. If we can link our systems with yours, we can create stronger protection. Can you help? Kent said with new energy. Our crystal technology is different from yours, but it might work together. Excellent. Our science officer is waiting in Lab 3. Captain Winters gestured and a young human stepped forward to escort Kent. And me? Lyra asked. Your people need hope, Winters said simply. They need to know they're not alone anymore. Will you broadcast a message with me to tell them that Earth stands with Alaris? Lyra felt tears form. Yes, I would be honored. As they prepared the broadcast, reports kept coming from the surface. More human dropships had landed. Marine teams fought Draoran forces across the planet. Most importantly, they evacuated civilians from danger zones and set up safe areas. One report made everyone stop and listen. Marine Sergeant Olivia Baker had found Karani children hidden in a school basement, alone for days without food. Her team not only rescued them, but stayed to defend the position when Draoran forces attacked. This is why we fight, Colonel Rivera said quietly. This is what humanity does best. We protect. As Lyra prepared to speak to her people, she looked at the humans around her. These strange, determined beings from nowhere who had chosen to fight for strangers. For the first time since the war began, she allowed herself to feel something beyond survival. She allowed herself to hope. News spread quickly across Alaris. Humans had arrived. They were fighting the Draorans. They were winning. In the broken streets of what was once the beautiful city of Kel, Lieutenant Maria Delgado led her squad through the ruins. Her powered armor hummed softly, increasing her strength and speed while providing protection. Her helmet display showed her team's positions and identified nearby life forms. Movement ahead. Corporal Greg Patel whispered through the comm. Large heat signature, probably Draoran. Hold position, Maria ordered. She moved forward alone, rifle ready. Around the corner, she saw a Draoran officer shouting at 3 soldiers. Between them stood a Karani male, his blue skin bruised and clothes torn. The Draorans pushed him roughly, laughing as he stumbled. Maria's translator picked up their words. Tell us where the others are hiding, or we'll feed you to the hatchlings. She had seen enough. All units, prepare to engage. Non-lethal for the prisoner. Full force on the Draorans, her team acknowledged with clicks in her earpiece. Maria took a small device from her belt and rolled it toward the Draorans. It made a soft beeping sound. The reptilians turned toward the noise. The device flashed with blinding light. Maria moved first, leaping from cover as the Draorans clutched their eyes. Her rifle fired 3 perfect shots, dropping 2 soldiers instantly. Corporal Patel and Private Leah Jones appeared from different positions, taking down the 3rd soldier and targeting the officer's legs. The officer fell, roaring in pain. Maria approached carefully, keeping her rifle aimed. In the name of the United Earth Forces, you are now a prisoner of war, she said through her translator. You will be treated according to galactic conventions. The officer spat on the ground. Humans have no honor. You fight like vermin, hiding and striking from shadows. Maria knelt beside the Karani prisoner. Are you hurt badly? She asked gently. The Karani looked at her with wide, surprised eyes. You saved me. That's why we're here, Maria said, helping him stand. I'm Lieutenant Delgado. What's your name? Jorith, he replied. I was a teacher before the invasion. Maria nodded to Private Jones. Get him to medical. She turned back to Jorith. Were there others with you? Yes. Many of us are hiding in the old crystal mines north of the city. Children, elders, anyone who couldn't fight. The Draorans were trying to make me tell them where. Maria helped Jorith to a vehicle where Jones waited. We'll get them out. You have my word. As Jorith was taken to safety, Maria contacted Captain Winters on the Dauntless. Sir, we've located a large group of Karani civilians hiding in crystal mines north of the city, requesting additional teams for evacuation. Understood, Lieutenant, Winters replied. Colonel Rivera is redirecting teams to your location. Be advised, our sensors show increased Draoran activity in your sector. They know something's happening. Roger that, Maria said. She turned to her team. Let's move. We need to reach those mines before the Draorans do. Meanwhile, on the Dauntless, Science Officer Alan Patrick worked with Commander Kent in a large laboratory. They were surrounded by Karani crystal technology from damaged defense systems. Fascinating, Alan said, examining a blue crystal under a scanner. These crystals naturally amplify energy. Is that how your shields worked? Kent nodded. Yes, the crystals formed an energy network around our cities, but the Draorans found the frequency that disrupted them. What if we changed the modulation, using random frequencies instead of fixed ones? Kent's eyes widened. That might work, but we'd need an enormous power source. We have that, Alan said with a smile. Human fusion reactors are extremely powerful. On the bridge, Administrator Vaughn watched the tactical display with Captain Winters and Commander Nguyen. The space battle had reached a stalemate. The Draoran fleet had pulled back, unwilling to engage the human ships directly again. They're waiting for reinforcements, Nguyen said. According to our intelligence, they've called for backup from their main fleet. How long do we have? Lyra asked. 3 or 4 days, maybe, Winters replied. Not long enough to evacuate the planet. Then we fight, Lyra said with new determination. My people are not warriors, but we can learn. Winters studied her face. Administrator, with respect, this is not your war anymore. It's ours too, Lyra said, straightening her back.
Captain, this is still our home.
We must defend it together. Winters nodded with approval. Commander Nguyen, contact Colonel Rivera. Tell him to begin training any Karani who wish to fight. Back on the surface, Maria's team reached the crystal mine's entrance. 2 Draoran patrol vehicles lay destroyed nearby, evidence that other human Marines had arrived first. Inside the mines, Maria found Sergeant Olivia Baker and her squad setting up defenses. The wide cavern held hundreds of Karani civilians, many thin and frightened. Lieutenant Baker reported, We've secured the area and started evacuating the most vulnerable. Medical teams are treating the sick and injured. Maria looked around at the terrified Karani. These people need more than rescue. They need hope. She removed her helmet, wanting them to see her face. She stepped forward and raised her voice. People of Alaris, I am Lieutenant Maria Delgado of the United Earth Forces. We are here to help you. The Draorans are being pushed back. Your world will be free again. An elderly Karani stepped forward. Why would humans fight for us? What do you want in return? Maria smiled gently. Nothing. Where I come from, we believe that all thinking beings have the right to live in peace and freedom. A small Karani child approached Maria, looking up with curious eyes. Are you really from another world? Why do you look so different? Maria knelt down to the child's level. Yes, I'm from a planet called Earth. We look different because we grew up under a different sun in a different world. But inside, we're not so different. We all want to live, to learn, to be safe. Can you teach us to fight like you? A young Karani male asked. I want to defend my home. Sergeant Baker stepped forward. We can teach you. Not everyone needs to be a warrior, but everyone deserves the chance to defend what they love. Over the following hours, as evacuation ships arrived to take the most vulnerable to safety, Maria and her team taught willing Karani basic combat techniques. They were not natural fighters, but they learned quickly. On the 3rd day after the humans arrived, the Draorans launched a major counterattack. They had gathered their remaining ground forces for an assault on the capital city, hoping to take back control before their fleet reinforcements arrived. Colonel Rivera coordinated the defense from a forward command post. Human Marines fought alongside newly trained Karani fighters. The battle was fierce, with the Draorans pushing forward with wave after wave of soldiers. "They're trying to overwhelm us with numbers," Rivera said to Captain Winters over the comm. "We're holding, but it's getting tight." On the Dauntless, Winters turned to Science Officer Patrick. "How soon can the shield be ready?" "We need another 6 hours," Patrick replied. "Kent and I are reconfiguring the crystal network now." "You have 3 hours," Winters said firmly. "After that, there won't be much left to shield." As the battle raged on the ground, Maria Delgado found herself fighting alongside Jorith, the teacher she had rescued days earlier. He handled the human weapon awkwardly, but his eyes showed fierce determination. "Stay behind cover!" Maria shouted as Draoran energy blasts flew overhead. "Only fire when you have a clear shot." Jorith nodded, then pointed suddenly. "Lieutenant, look." Maria turned to see a massive Draoran walker vehicle stomping toward their position, crushing buildings in its path. Its weapons could devastate their entire defensive line. "All units focus fire on that walker," she commanded. But their weapons barely scratched its armored hide. The walker continued forward, unstoppable. Maria grabbed her last plasma charge. "Cover me." Before Jorith could protest, Maria ran toward the walker, dodging energy blasts and leaping over debris. Using her armor's enhanced strength, she jumped higher than any human could naturally, landing on the walker's leg. She climbed quickly, reaching the main body. The Draoran pilot spotted her and tried to shake her off. Maria held tight, placing the plasma charge on what looked like an engine housing. She set the timer for 30 seconds and pushed off, falling back to the ground. Her armor absorbed most of the impact, but she still felt pain shoot through her leg. Jorith ran to her side, helping her back to cover just as the plasma charge detonated. The walker shuddered, then collapsed in a heap of twisted metal and smoke. A cheer went up from the Karani fighters. Maria smiled through her pain. For the first time since the invasion began, the Draorans were in retreat. News of the Draoran retreat spread quickly through the Karani resistance. For the first time in 2 years, they had won a major battle. Hope began to grow. In the main science facility of the capital city, Science Officer Allen and Commander Kent worked frantically to finish the new shield system. They had connected human power generators to the remaining Karani crystal network. Sweat dripped from Allen's forehead as he calibrated the final connections. "The power flow is stable," Kent said, watching the readings on his display, "but the coverage will only extend about 50 miles from the city center." "It's a start," Allen replied. "Once we prove the concept works, we can expand it." He tapped his communicator. "Captain Winters, the shield is ready for testing." Captain Winters acknowledged the report. "Excellent timing. Our sensors show the Draoran fleet is trying to break through to land reinforcements. They know they're losing the ground war." "Activate the shield," Winters ordered. Back in the science facility, Allen pressed a series of controls. The large crystal in the center of the room began to glow with blue-white light. The energy spread outward through connected smaller crystals, forming a network that extended throughout the city. Outside, a shimmering dome of energy appeared, growing larger until it covered the capital and surrounding areas. The effect was beautiful, like being inside a giant soap bubble that reflected rainbow colors. "Shield is stable," Allen reported. "Power consumption is within acceptable limits." Kent stared at the readings with amazement. "This is incredible. The energy efficiency far exceeds our original designs." "Human power systems paired with Karani crystal technology," Allen said with a smile. "Seems we make a good team." The shield was activated just in time. The Draoran fleet launched a massive bombardment targeting the capital city with everything they had. Energy weapons and explosive projectiles struck the shield and were absorbed or deflected. In the city streets, Karani civilians watched in awe as the attacks that had devastated their world for 2 years now fizzled harmlessly against the new shield. Colonel Rivera stood with Administrator Vaughn in the central plaza, observing the light show above them. "The shield is holding," he said, "but the Draorans won't give up easily." "No," Lyra agreed. "They will try something else." She looked around at her people, many now wearing pieces of human armor or carrying human weapons. "But we are no longer helpless thanks to you." Rivera shook his head. "Not just us. Your people have courage. They just needed the tools and training to use it." A human soldier approached them quickly. "Colonel, we're receiving transmissions from other systems. 3 alien ships have just entered orbit." Rivera tensed. "Draoran reinforcements, no, sir. They're identifying themselves as the Vuri, the Arn Collective, and the Shangxi Federation. They're requesting to speak with the human leadership. Lyra gasped. These are other species that have suffered Draoran attacks. They've never responded to our calls for help before. Rivera and Lyra hurried to the command center where Captain Winters was already speaking with the alien representatives via holographic projection. 3 very different beings appeared before them. A Vuri admiral, a tall being with gray skin who breathed through special apparatus, an Arn representative, insect-like with compound eyes and multiple limbs, and a Shangxi diplomat whose crystalline body glowed with inner light. We have observed your battle with the Draorans, the Vuri admiral was saying. No species has ever resisted them for this long. The humans fight differently, the Arn representative noted, mandibles clicking. You do not follow expected patterns of warfare. The Shangxi diplomat's body pulsed with light as they spoke. We have come to offer our assistance. If humans will lead, others will follow. Captain Winters glanced at Commander Naguan, who gave a small nod. We welcome your help, Winters said, but I'm curious, why now? The Karani have been fighting alone for 2 years. The Vuri admiral's breathing apparatus hissed before he answered. Fear. The Draorans have conquered many worlds. No single species could stand against them. But humans have changed the equation. The Arn added. You have shown that the Draorans can be defeated. We do not seek to rule, Winters said clearly. We seek to free. If you join us, it will be as equals in an alliance. The 3 representatives conferred briefly. Then the Shangxi diplomat spoke for all. We accept these terms. Our ships will follow your tactical lead. After the transmission ended, Lyra returned to Winters. You just formed an alliance spanning multiple star systems in minutes. Humans are good at bringing people together, Winters replied with a small smile, especially when there's a common enemy. The newly formed alliance wasted no time. The Vuri ships with their advanced stealth technology positioned themselves behind the Draoran fleet. The Arn contributed their expertise in electronic warfare, disrupting Draoran communications. The Shangxi, whose crystalline technology was similar to the Karani's but more advanced, helped strengthen the planetary shields. Lieutenant Delgado, her leg now healed, led a mixed team of human marines and Karani fighters on a mission to capture a Draoran command center. With them was Jorith, the teacher who had become a capable fighter. Remember the plan, Maria told the team as they approached the Draoran facility. We need their communication codes intact. No explosives unless absolutely necessary. Jorith moved beside her, now comfortable with his human weapon. The building has 3 levels. The command center will be on the lowest floor. Maria nodded. Good. We go in quiet, take out the guards and secure the command center before they can destroy the data. The team moved silently through the night. Human Marines used their advanced armor to take the lead, while Karani fighters provided support. They reached the facility without being detected. The first level had minimal security, just 2 Draoran guards who were quickly subdued with stun weapons. The second level proved more challenging with a squad of Draoran soldiers on patrol. Maria signaled her team to hold position, then deployed a small drone that released a gas designed specifically for Draoran physiology. Within moments, the reptilian soldiers slumped to the floor, unconscious but alive. Clear, Maria whispered. Move to the lower level. They found the command center behind heavy doors. 4 Draoran officers were inside, working at various stations. They looked up in shock as the doors opened to reveal humans and Karani, with weapons aimed at them. Surrender, Maria said through her translator. You are now prisoners of the Earth-Karani Alliance. The lead Draoran, a scarred veteran with dark green scales, snarled defiantly. He reached for a control panel. Jorith fired first, a perfect shot that stunned the Draoran before he could touch the controls. The other officers, seeing their leader fall, raised their hands in surrender. Well done, Maria said to Jorith with genuine admiration. You've become quite the soldier. I'm still a teacher, Jorith replied. I've just learned new subjects to teach. With the command center secured, human technicians began downloading the Draoran communication codes and tactical data. This information would prove invaluable for the Alliance. Back at the capital, Science Officer Allen and Commander Kent made a breakthrough. By studying the captured Draoran technology, they discovered a way to disrupt the propulsion systems of the Draoran fleet. It's a quantum disruption field, Allen explained to Captain Winters and Administrator Vaughn. It interferes with their engine cores, essentially shutting them down temporarily. Can it work on their entire fleet? Winters asked. Alan hesitated. Yes, but there's a catch. We need enormous power, more than all our ships combined can generate. What about the planet's core? Kent suggested. Alaris has a unique crystal metal core that produces incredible energy. If we could tap into it. That's never been attempted at this scale, Lyra said. It could be dangerous. Alan nodded. Very dangerous, but it might be our only chance when their reinforcements arrive. Captain Winters looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Draoran armada, 50 ships strong, less than a day away. Begin the preparations, he ordered. We need to be ready when they arrive. As the Alliance forces prepared for the final battle, Maria and Jorth stood on a hill overlooking the capital city. The shield dome glowed softly above them, and ships from 4 different species moved in coordinated patterns around the planet. I never thought I would see this, Jorth said quietly. Different worlds working together. Maria watched a group of Karani children playing nearby, no longer hiding in fear. This is what we fight for, she said. Not just to defeat the Draorans, but to build something better afterward. Jorth turned to her, his expression serious. If we survive tomorrow, what happens next? Will humans stay? Maria looked up at the stars. I don't know. But whatever happens, your world will never be alone again. The day of the final battle arrived. The skies above Alaris IV darkened as the Draoran reinforcement fleet emerged from hyperspace. 50 warships arranged in attack formation. They dwarfed the combined Alliance fleet of 12 human vessels and 9 ships from the other species. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Captain Winters studied the tactical display with Commander Nagwan. Their faces were calm, but tension filled the air. All ships report ready, a young officer announced. The Vuri-armed vessels are in position. The Shang-Chi are maintaining the orbital shield grid. The quantum disruption device? Winters asked. Science Officer Allen's voice came through the comm system. Final calibrations complete. Kent and I are ready to activate. On your order. Winters nodded. All ships maintain defensive positions. Protect the planet at all costs. The Draorans must not break through. The Draoran command ship transmitted a message. War Commander Vexthor's reptilian face appeared on the main screen. His yellow eyes narrowed with contempt. Humans, he hissed. You have interfered where you do not belong. The Empire has claimed this world. Surrender now, and some of you may be allowed to live as slaves. Captain Winters stood tall. We reject your offer, War Commander. The Karani world is under our protection, as are all members of our alliance. It is you who should consider surrender. Vexthor laughed, a harsh sound like grinding stones. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Your alliance is nothing but the desperate union of weak species. The Empire cannot be defeated. We shall see, Winters replied calmly and ended the transmission. The Draoran fleet began its advance, their weapons charged, preparing to unleash destruction on the Alliance ships and the planet below. All ships execute defense pattern Delta, Commander Nagwan ordered. The Alliance vessels moved into position, creating layers of defense before the planet. On the surface in the central power facility, Alan and Kent worked at their stations. They had connected their quantum disruption device to the planet's crystal core through a network of amplifiers. Energy readings climbed higher as the core's power flowed into their device. Power at 70%, Kent reported. Core temperature rising, but still within safe parameters. 80%, Alan said moments later. 90, we're almost there. Administrator Vaughn stood with them, watching as the fate of her world hung in the balance. Will this work? She asked quietly. It has to, Alan replied, his eyes fixed on the controls. Outside the capital city, Lieutenant Delgado and Colonel Rivera led the ground forces. Human Marines stood alongside Karani fighters, ready to repel any Draoran troops that might break through. Jorth commanded a unit of Karani who had once been teachers, artists, and scientists, now transformed into determined warriors. Look, someone shouted, pointing at the sky. Above them, the space battle had begun. The Draoran ships fired their first volley, energy beams streaking toward the Alliance fleet. The human vessels took the brunt of the attack, their advanced shields flaring blue as they absorbed the impacts. The Alliance ships returned fire. Human kinetic weapons, Vuri energy disruptors, and Arn swarm missiles struck the Draoran vessels. Some found their mark causing damage, but most were stopped by the Draorans' heavy armor. They're too strong, Kent said, watching the battle on their monitors. Our ships can't hold out much longer. Just a few more moments, Alan urged. Power at 98%, 99. A massive explosion rocked the facility. The Draorans had managed to target their position with orbital strikes. The shields held, but the building shook violently. "They know what we're doing," Kent said. "They're trying to stop us." 100%, Alan shouted over the noise. "We're ready." Administrator Vaughn stepped forward. "This is my world. I should be the one to activate it." Alan nodded and moved aside. Vaughn placed her hand on the crystal control panel. "For Alaris," she said and pressed down. For a moment nothing happened. Then a pulse of blue-white energy erupted from the facility, spreading outward in concentric rings. It passed through the shield, through the atmosphere, and into space. On the Dauntless, Captain Winters watched as the energy wave reached the Draoran fleet. One by one, their ships lost power. Engines died, weapon systems failed, and they began to drift. "It worked," Commander Naguan exclaimed. 70% of the Draoran fleet is disabled. All ships, Winters ordered, attack the remaining vessels. Boarding teams prepare to capture the command ship. The Alliance fleet surged forward. Without most of their fleet to support them, the remaining Draoran ships were quickly overwhelmed. The human vessels moved with precision, targeting engines and weapon systems to disable rather than destroy when possible. A specially equipped assault shuttle launched from the Dauntless carrying Captain Winters, Colonel Rivera, and a team of elite Marines. They docked with the Draoran command ship, cutting through the hull and boarding by force. The fighting inside was fierce but brief. The human Marines in their powered armor moved through the Draoran vessel with unstoppable momentum. They reached the bridge in minutes. War Commander Vexthor stood waiting for them, surrounded by his elite guards. His scales were dark with rage, but his eyes showed something new: fear. "You cannot defeat an empire with a single battle," he hissed as the humans surrounded him. "We're not here to defeat your empire," Captain Winters replied, removing his helmet. "We're here to change it." Administrator Vaughn entered behind them, her head held high. "The terms of surrender are simple. Your forces will withdraw from Karani space. You will pay reparations for the damage caused, and you will sign a non-aggression pact with all members of our alliance." Vexthor snarled. "The High Command will never agree to such terms." Colonel Rivera activated a communication screen showing the defeated Draoran fleet, drifting powerless in space. "Your choice is simple, War Commander. Evolution or extinction." After the surrender was signed, the rebuilding began. The alliance grew stronger as word spread of the Draorans' defeat. Other species, long intimidated by the Empire, reached out to join the new Galactic Cooperative. 5 years later, Alaris IV had been transformed. The crystal cities stood again, more beautiful than before. Between the spires, new buildings showed the influence of human, Vuri, Arn, and Shangxi architecture, a blend of cultures working together. Jorath, once a teacher and then a soldier, now served as the head of a new academy where young Karani learned both their own history and the ways of other worlds. Lieutenant Maria Delgado, who had chosen to stay on Alaris, often visited to teach classes on human culture and history. In the main plaza of the capital city stood a memorial, statues of human soldiers and Karani civilians side by side with words carved in multiple languages. Just as all hope was lost, they came and everything changed. Administrator Vaughn, now Ambassador Vaughn, prepared for her first journey to Earth. As her ship readied for departure, she stood with Captain Winters, who had become a dear friend. "Your world has healed well," Winters said, looking out at the thriving city. "Thanks to Earth," Vaughn replied. "Without you, there would be nothing left to heal." Winters shook his head. "We only showed you the way. Your people did the hard work of rebuilding." Vaughn smiled. "That is why humanity has become so important to the galaxy. You don't conquer or control. You inspire. You show others how to be stronger, not by dominating them, but by standing with them." As her ship rose into the clear blue sky of Alaris, Vaughn thought about the speech she would give to the United Earth Council. She would tell them how a single act of courage had transformed not just her world, but an entire sector of the galaxy. How humans, by simply being human, stubborn, compassionate, innovative, and brave, had changed everything. The stars would indeed remember humanity's name, not as conquerors, but as the ones who showed the way forward, as the ones who came when all hope was lost and by doing so changed everything.